You like studying languages, Spencer?
I wouldn't know.
Well, maybe you should remedy that.
Why?
I don't know.
I have a hard enough time with the language that I've been trying to speak since I was born. I don't know, I haven't mastered this one yet to move on to another one.
Fair enough. I just bring it up because I thought, what was I reading?
Hustler.
Actually, it was a podcast I was listening to. There, just happened to bring it up. It was a poetry podcast, but I'm not going to go into poetry. As you know, I peruse and do some studying of the Irish language, which is very hard. But I found why I think so many great authors have come from Ireland, because their language, the way they speak, is just so much better than us. For instance, if you're sad, you just say in English, "I'm sad," or "I am sad." That's nothing. That's garbage. If you are, speaking Irish, you'd say "Tá bran orm," which means there is sadness upon me. Doesn't that just sound so much cooler? That's almost like something's happening to you. It's not just, I feel sad today. It's like the sadness is just enveloping you, and it's just suffocating you. And it just makes depression so much cooler sounding, in my opinion.
I guess, I mean,
it's not as literal.
Yeah, it sounds cool speaking, that, like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I'm just saying, in a literature, going by a writing standard, if you're reading literature and somebody says there is sadness upon me, that's just much more poetic than just saying, I'm sad. I'm mad, I'm glad. I like the fine language. I like the turns of phrases and things, and Irish is full of that. Spanish is a little different. If you're hungry in Spanish, it's I have hunger is kind of like would be the direct translation. It's like, oh, so you have hunger. It's just weird. It's not that's not as cool. And there's a lot of things like that. I think if you're cold, it'd be like I have cold. Not, I am cold, which is weird because they have the word I'm, like estoy or
Now, what about if it was cold like a sickness?
That's a
is
different.
It the same, or is it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's different. It's like infirma or something if you're sick, I think. Yeah, because cold's frio, so if I'm cold, I guess it'd be tango frio or something. I have cold. It's not as poetic in the Latin-speaking languages, but Spanish is unique in its own right, but I think Irish is just really cool. And Japan is it just doesn't, from what I've studied, it just doesn't seem to translate in a way that I would understand quite yet, because I can't read kanji at all.
I always think about translators and, how much work that would have to take. And that gets me thinking of, the first people to translate. Imagine what that was like. Imagine, the first, Japanese and English, people trying to figure out what the fuck they were saying.
Or the people who, translated the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, it's...
Because it was multiple languages. I don't know. Language to begin with. There's different regions, and people just mixed and mingled and just kind of learned the hard way how to speak each other's languages for trade and whatnot. Yeah, I really like Japanese, but I just translated to English. It just doesn't sound very cool. Because, their grammar's kind of backwards, so it just doesn't seem like it translates in a cool way. But if you, what we always talk about when we're reading these Japanese novels, the original Japanese probably has so much different meaning than, what the English versions do. I'd be so interested to be able to read Japanese and understand, but that's, the barrier I can't seem to get over is how do you understand? Because even, the Irish example, I have sadness upon me. Tá bran orm, when I read that, I'm just thinking I'm sad still.
Yeah.
In my stupid English brain, I'm sad. So I'd never think, there's sadness upon me, but that's what it actually translates to. So I feel it would take a lot more effort and a lot more years of study to learn the proper way to translate it and I feel like you would just have to probably be born bilingual, have, parents that speak both languages to really get it. There are freaks out there who can, polyglots who could just speak all kinds of languages, but I'm not one of them. Like you, as a youngster, I was happy that I could even speak English. And until my 20s, I was speaking a lot of English improperly.
Oh, yeah.
As we do often on this podcast.
Me talk wells.
Me talk goods. Yeah, the whole, I don't know, nothing. That's when I still catch myself every once in a while throwing that nothing in there. No, anything. It's always anything. It's not, I don't know anything. Not, I don't know nothing.
But what about if I don't know nothings?
Nothings. No, I like how you had the S on there, too. The nothings.
I'm always adding S's and things onto stuff when they shouldn't be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Just fuck it all up. If you're going to fuck it up all the way. Be as bad as you can. Then people will think you're special, and then they won't feel, they're not going to make fun of you if you think you're special. But if they just think you're dumb, that's a different topic at hand. Today, this is the New Year's edition, I guess, right? So it's got a couple topics. I think we always talk about, the books and New Year's resolutions and all that shit. All that happy horse shit. So, folks, if you want to stick around and hear Spencer and I discuss not fine literature today, some of it's fine. I've read some fine literature this year. Yeah. You probably did.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
After these messages from Spencer.
The nut shaver guys.
You gotta fucking stop. Manscaped. Do you want to? No, man. I just remember getting in trouble a long time ago when someone listened to our episode and they were super Christian, and the very first thing out of my mouth was about shaving balls on the cold open. And the guy, he's like real nice about it, but he messaged me on Twitter. He's like, I'm sorry. I would love to listen to your podcast, but I can't. He gave me the explanation. I was like, sorry. I guess I should have warned you that it's not a fine literature podcast or a fine writing podcast. Nothing fine about it.
Mediocre.
Mediocre. But we could talk about manscaping if we were. Is it Manscaped? Is that what the product?
I think that's one of them. I think there's a couple of them now. Yeah.
There's way too many ball shaving ads on my YouTube
right?
for something I'm not buying. I'll stick to my rusty fucking shears, my rusty garden shears. Thank you.
I've just been using that stuff that the foam stuff that ladies spray like on their legs and it just wipes it off. That's just what I've been using down there.
Ooh, just chemical burns.
Yeah.
I've actually just resorted to like indigenous Americans just pulling the hairs out one by one. I find the pain is kind of pleasurable after a while because, it really dulls the nerves. Thank you for choosing the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast as your podcast listening experience. Man, I botched that. I didn't know what to follow up with. I don't even know why I started that way. I never start that way.
Nope.
What a fucking stupid... You know what? I don't care. We got a couple episodes for our 100th when we decide to get professional.
Oh, that's when we're going to decide to get professional?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. We could discuss it at the end of the episode. I got big plans for the show. Okay. Maybe even canceling the show. I haven't decided that part yet. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today is Spencer, the Quebecan quarantine quipper church. You're throwing quips out in quarantine in Quebec.
I'm sure.
I wanted a bunch of Q's, and it's very hard to come up with Q's.
Yeah.
If you asked me 5 minutes ago if quarantine started with the Q, I'd only be like 80% certain it did. Like some part of me would be like, nah, it's gotta be a C, right?
As we mentioned in the cold open, haven't quite mastered the language yet.
No, not at all. So we're gonna speed through this first part because it's probably gonna take long. You want me to go first? You want to go first?
You can go first.
All right.
You read more than I did, so
yeah. Well, you know what? We'll start off. What was your reading goal for the year?
Mine, I set a very modest 12 books. Figure at least one a month. Something that didn't, something attainable, which I was able to meet and exceed. I made it up to, I think, like 14, so.
That's pretty good. That's about what I did. Not the number of books, but the over. My goal for the year was 40 books. I read 43 books. But there is a little bit of a caveat here is because you didn't mark any graphic novels down, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't do like any.
I just marked down some graphic novels, and if they were like really long, short, like the Candyman story, The Forbidden was pretty long, so I think I have that. So some of the, the number kind of fluctuates, but I just mainly keep track, and it just says it's books regardless. So we'll find out if, all of these are books, but for the most part, I think they're pretty good. To start off my reading journey for the year, I actually was into some mangas, which is an interesting choice for me because
I like it.
This was the year of the manga for Caleb. If you notice, I read quite a few this year.
I read a good amount of manga this year, too.
Excellent. Because we're moving up from the comic book world to the manga world because we are high society now. Actually, that's like a lateral move, if anything. It's not necessarily but some of it could be a bump up, but most of it probably
not what I'm reading now.
Well, I think what I was reading was a little bit of a bump up from comics. Which not really, because you know what? I'm going to get into it because I'm going to keep rambling. I opened the year with H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountain of Madness, the manga version by Gao Tanabe. And that's 2 volumes. I read volume 1 and volume 2. They're both pretty long. And it was a good rendition of At the Mountains of Madness, because if you read that story, it's kind of hard to understand what's happening a lot of the times.
Yes.
Visual helps big time.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
I read the Slaughterhouse 5, The Children's Crusade graphic novel by Ryan North, and obviously Kurt Vonnegut was the original author of Slaughterhouse 5, which I read, I think, last year or the year before. So that was a very good one. Then I would recommend that to everybody as well. Again, seeing the visual of the novel is really, really cool. I read a lot of graphic novels that were based on classic literature this year, too.
Yeah, a lot of adaptations.
At least a few. Then we move on to Uzumaki by Junji Ito. Fucking weird. That's spirals. Everything's a spiral. It's a fucking weird... I mean, it's one of his most famous works. Most people know it. Even if they don't know it, if they saw like image from it, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's what that weird shit is. So that was very good.
It seems like one of those things that are like... influence like other creators.
Yeah.
So like even if you might have not even seen their stuff, like you were saying, you probably seen something that was inspired by it.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of tattoo artists as well. Now we're moving on to the dog shit of the year. The Consumer by Michael Gira. This book's not even in print. I had to get a bootleg PDF, which was already hard to read because it was all fucked up. I didn't even finish the book. One of the most disgusting books for the sake of disgusting. I'm not going to get into it on here because then I'm just going to want to fucking get angry. Awful. I would not recommend.
Worse than Haunted?
Yes. Haunted I was able to finish. No, this one had like, let's just say some things with kids that was very disturbing. And a lot of it was just gross for the sake of gross, but then also perverse for the sake of being perverse. I don't know what the fuck the point of this book was. But it was awful. And then we both read Casino Royale.
Yes.
By Ian Fleming. That was good. That was a good foray into the James Bond, his first book. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about maybe in the beginning of the year, maybe downloading the second one just to see what that's like.
Reading more James Bond when there's other things you should be reading, huh?
Well, James Bond takes a couple of days.
Yeah, I know. Then I moved on to another manga, The Kurosagi Corpse Delivery Service by Eiji Otsuka and Hatsui Yamazaki. It was okay. It was a fun read. It's about, very weird. It's just about people that kind of have powers and they run a corpse delivery service. They could talk to dead, like one guy could talk to dead people, another one talks to an alien. Hard to explain, but it's a fun premise. And just for like a mid-tier horror comedy manga, fun to read. Then I went to The Traveling Cat Chronicles. This was a suggestion in the Classic Lit group. It's a very fun story by Hiro Adekawa. And it was Philip Gabriel, who does a lot of Haruki Murakami's translations, his newer translations, translated this. Very upbeat. It's about a guy who goes on an adventure with a stray cat he found. He goes across Japan. Super depressing ending. But very good book overall. If you want an upbeat, happy story that'll make you cry happy tears at the end, that's the book to read. It was a good palate cleanser from a lot of the horror and some of the things I was reading. Then I read the Hemingway Stories by Ernest Hemingway and I guess edited by Tobias Wolff. That was the PBS collection. We read the documentary. I read the short story collection first. Really good. Highly recommend that if you're a Hemingway fan. Even if you're not a Hemingway fan, some of those stories were still really good. Then we read Neon... No, you didn't read this either because you're fucking been slacking. Neon Druid, an anthology of urban Celtic mythology. It's cut off, so I might be making that last part up. But it's a Celtic mythology collection by I.E. Neverday, who is the editor. I spoke to him on Twitter. This is when I bought a bunch of... we bought a bunch of indie authors' books. And then it's got Madison McSweeney, and the rest of the names are cut off here, but it's an anthology, so... Fun read. I would say a little more than half the stories I really, was enjoying. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because, like I said... Well, stars on Goodreads.
Oh, well.
It's a Goodreads. I would say it's worth the read. I think a lot of people... Because the stories I didn't like were like the fairy... super fantasy stories.
So
that's not my wheelhouse. So
it wasn't more like you didn't like them because they weren't good stories. It
was just the genre of story.
Yeah, it's just you don't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because like those ones weren't even really urban fantasy. They were just fantasy. Then I read Elric of Melniboné and Other Stories by Michael Moorcock, and there was a 4 and like 15 introductions by Alan Moore. The collection, whatever this version was garbage, but the actual novel, which is I wanted to read's in it, that's very good. So I gave the novel 5 out of 5 stars. If I could go back, I would take all the stars off of this collection because I did not like the collection. Because it was just a bunch of random shit. And then I just wanted the novel, which didn't need to be all that extra stuff. Then I read South of the Border, West of the Sun by Haruki Murakami. I don't know why I always give him the Spanish R. It's one of the few names I could do the rolling R with, and it's Haruki Murakami, a Japanese man. And that was translated by Philip Gabriel. Did not like that book.
No?
No, that was one of the few Haruki Murakami books I would not recommend people read. I did not care for it, just kind of very generic. Can't all be winners. Next up, The Decay of the Angel by Yukio Mishima. And it took me a while to get through this because it was that was the final book of the tetralogy, the Sea of Fertility tetralogy I was reading. Very heavy Buddhist philosophy in this one. And the one before, too, was pretty heavy. But I'd recommend, if you're going to read Yukio Mishima, there's a couple titles I would recommend before going into that tetralogy. But I really like his writing style, and I did enjoy those. Next up is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Come on. It's the Gaiman. Gaiman is, I haven't read anything of his I haven't liked yet. 5 out of 5 stars for me. It's just a reimagining of The Jungle Book, but in a graveyard. Awesome, fun story. Highly recommend. Then I read The Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King, and the art by Bernie Wrightson. I'm a big Bernie Wrightson guy. You're a big Stephen King guy. I gave it 3 out of 5. It wasn't very big.
No.
I think your average, I'm not a werewolf fan either, so yeah, I thought it was okay. Then I read the Batman Lobo series by Alan Grant. I guess it was like a one-off graphic novel, maybe. I don't know.
Probably like a miniseries or something.
Yeah, it was fun enough. Then we read First Person Singular by Haruki Murakami and edited by Philip Gabriel. We have a whole series on that, so if you folks want our interpretation of that, you could just check it out, Murakami Minute, the first season, which kind of hard to split them up, but it was okay. Again, same as my rating for that other Haruki Murakami book I just said, 3 stars. I didn't really think it was that great. Then I read Death Republic by Ila Kaminsky. That is a poetry story collection, I guess. I don't know how you define that, but it's one of the only poetry books I've really bought recently. I mean, I have like a Langston Hughes one, but this one's like a kind of a narrative. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. I read The Savage Tales of Solomon Kane by Robert E. Howard. That's just all the stories of Solomon Kane. Excellent. You need to read that sometime.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Very good. I read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. I liked the movie. I liked the book. I would say I like the book.
You can't like both, Caleb.
I like the book, maybe. It's hard to say, because the book really fills out what the movie doesn't have, all the backstory and stuff, but the ending's different. Doesn't have that awesome ending that the movie has. So, even. I would say it's just even, Steven. I like both evenly. Life for Sale by Yukio Mishima. This one was translated by Stephen Dodd. This was a real fun story, because I never say that about Yukio Mishima books, because it was the only one I've read of his that was like a Haruki Murakami book or something. Like, it was just like ridiculous kind of, like, this guy just decides to put his life for sale. So people just keep coming to, they give him money and he's like, all right, I'll do whatever you want. I die. And he never ends up dying. Like, it's just all this horrible shit keeps happening. And it's like kind of like a crime noir too. It's really fun. I wish he would have he might have, I don't know. I haven't seen any books of his that were quite like that before, other than that. I read Graveyard Clay, also known as Cranachile, that's the Irish name, by Martino Cayan. I really like that book. The whole book is just dialogue from people that are in a graveyard, buried, just dead bodies in the graveyard. Really, really weird. Very hard to read at first. It takes a while to get used to the writing style, and you just know, because it's just everybody's talking. That's all it is. There's not one part of narration, plot, anything. Very weird. Then I read The Dregs of the Day, also by Martino Cayan. This was Alan Titley translation. Kind of a depressing read. Guy loses his wife. Like, his wife dies at home, and he just can't face it, so he just walks around town doing random shit. Kind of a weird story. Oh, God. You're not even going to know this one. When we went to Ann Arbor this year.
Yeah.
I picked up that Parallel by Jason Douglas. It was one of the comic series I bought. And I read the whole series.
Yeah.
Like 5 issues or something. I read them all while sitting there. I gave it 3 stars. I couldn't tell you what it was about. I read At Night, All Blood is Black by David Diop, and I guess translated by Anna Moshkovich. I don't know. Some Russian name. I got that when we were also in Ann Arbor. We went to the bookstore. It was an interesting read. I think it won like the Booker Prize or something.
Because I think that was like the only reason why you got it.
Yeah. Very depressing. Very kind of, it was like repetitive. It was a really good book, but it was kind of repetitive, and it was one of those ones like I liked, but I wouldn't read again. Then I read, you bought this for me, I believe, the Hunter S. Thompson Fear and Loathing graphic novel.
Yep.
Done by Troy Little. Excellent. Another one, really, really fun read because it's the visual representation of the novel, which I also love the novel. Then I read Everything's Eventual by Stephen King. Oh, yeah, that was pretty good. I'm trying to think of some of the short stories that were in that were like Riding the Bullet.
Was it the man in the black Man in the Black Suit? Wasn't that where that one's from?
Yeah, Man in the Black Suit.
Because I know you read that before ever reading the collection, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember if that's what collection it was actually in.
I think there's only 2 or 3 stories in that collection I didn't really care for. Then I read The Great Gatsby, a graphic novel by K. Woodman Maynard. Really good. Very cool way they do the metaphors and stuff in this because they show it literally as in the art. And then we both like this one, based on a true story by Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, folks, if you are a fan of Mark Twain or Dostoevsky and would wonder what it would be like if those two combined their writing styles, Norm Macdonald of all people.
Right.
Very fun book. Then I read Revival by Stephen King. That was a 5 out of 5 read. I really liked that book. I read The Forbidden by Clive Barker. Very disappointed. Not what I thought it was going to be. One, I didn't know the original Candyman, which is what the story's based, what the story is, was set in a UK project with just a bunch of poor white people. It's like, okay. This is where things start to pick up. I read The Hobbit, or There and Back Again by J.R.R. Tolkien, and that sent me down. Shut your fucking mouth, you whore. That sent me down a whole different road of life.
I'm gonna say, yeah, you should go back to see if you, back to Neo and Druid and see if you like any of those,
fantasy?
Yeah, stories now.
It's not the same. Not the same. And then next up I read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. And then after that, I read The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. That was really good, and I just started the third book, the Two Towers, and I'm only like a chapter in, but so far I'm already seeing that it might be going downhill. You know why I say that? Because apparently the Two Towers is all the characters after they split up. You get to see like all of them what they're doing, and it's not a fellowship anymore. So I don't know if I like that or not.
Isn't this like the longest of the?
No, it's the shortest, I think.
Oh, is it the shortest?
Yeah. Then I read Plunge by Joe Hill. That was a fun read. I read Basket Full of Heads by Joe Hill. Also a fun read.
Both graphic novels.
Both graphic novels. Yeah, because Joe Hill's a novelist too, so I guess it's good to clarify. So I highly recommend people checking those out if you like horror/comedy, because they're both, especially the one, Basket Full of Heads is really funny.
Or if you're a fan of his novels and you haven't read any of his comic books, those would be good ones because they're just singular, one-off, miniseries.
Right. Yeah. So quick reads too. Then I read, and I surprisingly did not care for this that much, which is very disappointing because it's very fucking big. It's like 800 something pages. Tomie by Junji Ito. Oh man. I mean, this was like what got him famous, I'm pretty sure. And it just didn't quite hit. It's just about a really beautiful girl that makes people guys crazy and they kill her. And she just keeps coming back and she's like evil, but not evil. I don't know. It just wasn't, not my cup of tea. You made me read this. You fucking guy over here made me read this. Dragon Ball. That time I got reincarnated as Yamcha.
And it's the greatest thing you've ever read.
Yeah, and this is by Dragon Arrow Lee.
It's probably a pen name. I don't know.
I would imagine the name's not Dragon Arrow. And obviously the original creator, Akira Toriyama, if you will. And did not like it. It had promise too. It started off and I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to make Yamcha cool. They're going to make Yamcha because it's a guy gets reincarnated, gets killed, quotation, quote unquote. He gets killed and then he comes back in the Dragon Ball universe as Yamcha right at the start of the Saiyan saga. So it's like, oh, he knows what's going to happen though. So he's like, I'm great. I know all this history. I'm going to train real hard. I can make Yamcha a badass. But then it just ends up the same way. I was like, what the fuck? Make him if I was if I was writing that, I'd make Yamcha, he might not be able to become as powerful as Goku, but since he knows what's going to happen, he could do some cool shit.
Yeah.
But he just kind of gets reserved. Well, I'm never going to win Bulma anyway, so I'm just going to let Vegeta have her. And it's like, fucking nerd. I didn't care. I gave it 2 stars, and that was being generous. Just didn't want to hurt your feelings. I fucking hated it. I didn't hate it. It took 5 minutes to read anyway. Then next up, I read the graphic novel version of I Am a Cat by Chiroru Kobata, and the original, which is one of my favorite novels, is by Natsume Soseki, or I guess you would call him Soseki Natsume, going by the title here. But Natsume Soseki, that's the classic rendition of how you say Japanese names, which is backwards, which I don't know if they still do as much. Because then it'd be like Murakami Haruki, right? If you did that's one thing that still confuses the fuck out of me. I just don't understand why. But it's a really good one. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars because there was typos.
Oh.
It's a manga. but there was typos. It's like, translation wasn't that good, I guess. But it was just fun seeing like that novel, because that's a pretty dense novel, seeing that in manga form shortened up. Then I recently read Gutter in the Grave by Kurt Cannon. I know it's by Ed McBain, but it says Kurt Cannon and Ed McBain. But I know Ed McBain's a pen name, so is that guy's name? He has a bunch of fucking... I didn't really look into him, and Ashley's going to be mad if he's listening to this because he knows all about this guy, apparently. But Gutter in the Grave by Ed McBain. Fun crime noir. I really, really enjoyed it. You need to read it because it doesn't take very long. And now I'm going to go down those hard case crime publishing books, selection, words, I say. Then after that, we both read The Elephant Vanishes by Haruki Murakami. And the main translators in that were Alfred Birnbaum and Jay Rubin. And
yeah, I think they were the only two, weren't they?
it says John Chan something. I can't read the final name. It cuts off here, but I don't remember him in it. Maybe he did the 4. I don't remember. But solid collection. Some fun stories in there. And then I read this just the other day because everyone keeps telling me I have to read it because it's one of the best. So I finally read it. The Stranger by Albert Camus. This was the Matthew Ward translation, which changes the whole tone of the book because in the original, it starts off with Mother Died Today. That was the English translation. But he made it Maman Died Today, which would be closer to like Mom or Mommy Died Today. The reason why that's such a controversial topic is because it shows his closeness with his mother, because in the book, like, he pretty much gets condemned to death. He kills a guy, but he gets condemned to death because he doesn't show affection towards his mother. When I read this book, I was like, this protagonist has Asperger's, like, clearly. Like, when you read the description of this guy, and then when I looked it up, I was like, just typed in The Stranger and Asperger's. Apparently that was like a hot point of contention, that was the first depiction in any fiction of a guy with Asperger's.
Huh. And how old is the book?
1942.
So probably even had no idea that
Camus based the protagonist on a friend of his who was kind of odd guy, and I guess people looked into it, and it seems like that guy probably had Asperger's.
But nobody knew,
Yeah.
that wasn't a thing back then.
Now, Spencer, good sir, I'm going to ask you something before we get into your list, because that was the end of my list.
All right.
That book was one of our short, what we just did last episode, the short novels or whatever, the short book collection.
Mm-hmm.
Books under 200 words, or 200 pages. Fuck, I can't talk today. Books under 200 pages. And do you care to stoke your ego a bit? Do you care...
I mean, in front of everybody here?
Yeah. Would you like to smell your own farts for a change? In a good way.
I mean, it depends on probably what I'm eating.
In a fine snifter glass. If you read The Stranger... Not only have you read what is considered one of the finest pieces of literature ever written, apparently, that's what people say. I thought it was a really good book. You would read something that Ashley has not gotten to yet.
Oh.
Because I just talked to him the other day about it, because I showed him a picture, I got it, and he's like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to read that, but he's not read it. So if you hurry up and read it,
yeah,
you could fucking rub it in his face that you read Camus, and he has not read The Stranger. Also, very easy read, kind of reminds me almost like a Hemingway. You'd fly right through it. Like, I read it over the period of a couple days in like 15, 20-minute increments.
Yeah.
So maybe an hour. Like I said, it's only like 123 pages or something, but...
Now, would you say, should I try to like track like the version that you have, or should I try to
you
get
just borrow my book if you want.
But I don't know, should I, the other version, like,
I would say my version's good because, like I said, with the tone and I don't think it's going to really matter. The main thing is just about nihilism. And we both kind of agree that's a stupid, philosophy. It's like, oh, everything is meaningless. That's pretty much the whole meaning of the book, because he was, Camus was a French philosopher, so everything was depressing. If you just read it for the story, like, you'll get the fucking point of it. It's not complicated. I'll just borrow my copy. Read it in a day. Read it over the weekend, over Christmas time. This is the perfect time to read something like that. And then you'll be happy. So you want to get into your list, sir?
Okay.
And Spencer did not put his on Goodreads, so he cannot find you dates or word counts or anything like that.
No, I can't.
Page counts, anything like that.
So the first one I didn't start this year, but I finished. It was like one of those ones that was like,
that counts because I'm pretty sure that at the Mountains of Madness I started the previous year and finished in January.
So that was the Sleeping Beauties,
which you've been reading for 6 years now. Apparently,
yeah, that took forever. That took a while. Well,
we talked about this, but your official rating was low on that.
Yeah. And like I said, I did a fucked up. I got like 200 pages in it, stopped so we could read a whole bunch of stuff for the website.
It's not like I had to pull your leg to stop reading that book.
we talked about it multiple times on the, on these old episodes and stuff like that. So if you really want to know, you can go download some of our old episodes.
Yeah.
And then I went with Time Machine.
H.G. Wells, good.
H.G.
Good
Wells.
That was your first foray into the Wells.
This was my first travel with Mr. Wells. Though I probably liked this one the least out of the Wells books that I read, which is weird because I'm a big fan of the time travel in general.
Well, I didn't listen to the Time Machine, I didn't read the Time Machine. I ended up listening to it on that fictional podcast. Yeah. I think it was that podcast, or it was either that or another podcast I was reading it. And I just kind of was like, what the fuck is happening? I just it did not jive with me.
And his writing style for that novel was very weird because it was it was all written in a note, but none of the characters had names. He was the time traveler, and he had people to come over to show his time machine to, and one was the professor and the
generic titles.
There was no name, and it was just written weird, and it was not what I again, as I soon to find out when I started reading these H.G. Wells books, what I thought the story was or might be was nothing, nowhere near it at all. He gets stuck in the future and stuff like that. I would say it's not a long one. If you're gonna read his things, I would say not. I wouldn't say not read. Read it, but maybe not read it first if that's what you're trying to, get into his stuff. Casino Royale, as we talked about previously. With all of its nut-smashing glory.
We did an episode on that, right?
Yes.
That was a book of the month or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys could just listen to that and find out all about it.
Slaughterhouse 5, the graphic novel and the actual novel.
Which one did you read first, the novel?
The novel first.
Did you read those back-to-back? I don't remember.
They were very close together. Very close together. If not
probably
back-to-back.
Probably not the best way to go into reading those.
Loved the book. It was, the graphic novel was great too.
I actually gave that book to you to read 3 years ago, I think, or 2 years ago, and you didn't read it when I gave it to you, and then you ended up borrowing it again.
Yeah. But yeah, just really enjoyed it. Definitely want to read more Vonnegut. Here this year coming up. I really want to see what else he can do.
I think we were talking about that book I got. What was the name of something Titan? I can't remember the name of it, but that one was short.
Yeah.
Or maybe I would like to do Cat's Cradle personally. If we're gonna read a Vonnegut next.
No More Tales to Tell. This is one of the indie authors that we bought. It was basically it was a collection of short stories. I think they was all from the same person, but they were framed in a way of these people were in a room together telling stories. I think of messed up or things that they did and stuff like that.
Something like that, yeah. I only read maybe half. It wasn't a big book either. I only got through half of it, and I ended up reading something else.
Yeah, it was all right. Neverwhere, another Neil Gaiman book. Really great. You need to check this one out. Getting not a big read.
We'll do the Gaiman swap. You get Graveyard book, I'll get that.
But really fun, and just as you were saying, haven't read a Neil Gaiman thing that I haven't enjoyed. Doesn't matter the genre, the medium, but it was really fun. I enjoyed that. The first person singular Invisible Man.
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells Invisible Man. This one I really enjoyed. It had more of a thriller, and as I begin to read more H.G. Wells, yes, he's a science fiction writer, but at least in the stories that I read this year, there's a good bit of horror aspects.
Well, Invisible Man's always been interpreted as a horror character.
Yeah, because he's going around when people are trying to figure out, about him, and he's going around doing devious things and even hurting and murdering people and stuff like that. Strangely, out of all of the Invisible Man adaptations and things and stuff that I read, one of the closest ones that I feel to the actual book kinda is what was the Bacon one?
Oh, the Kevin Bacon movie?
Yeah.
Wasn't Invisible Man, was it?
No, I don't think so.
fuck, I can't remember the name of that. That was a good movie.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because, like, with the, when he goes invisible, that mental, toll, like, how it starts messing with you, you know, you're not seeing yourself, you don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to walk around naked all the time if you don't want to be, like, you know what I mean?
With your
like,
slots hanging out.
Both of those versions did a good job of, like, playing up on that mental, aspect of it and stuff like that.
I didn't like the new Invisible Man movie I saw with, what's her name? Something Holmes? Elizabeth Holmes?
Yeah.
Not Elizabeth Holmes. What's her name? Elizabeth... fuck.
From, The Handmaid's Tale and, Mad Men and stuff like that.
Yeah. I can't remember. I didn't like that movie, though. I thought it was garbage.
It's a suit, isn't it?
Something. Yeah, it's like a suit or something.
Later, Stephen King's, Hard Case Crime, newest story that...
Yeah, you like that book? Was that a good book, huh?
It was a really good book that Caleb has here on the desk that's going to be in his suit to read pile as well.
Yeah, soon to read.
Soon, very soon to read.
Very soon to read.
Very soon to read. It stays in that pulpy kind of stuff, but also has the Stephen King kind of ghostly, like, possession, you know, thing, you know, that to it. Another very short, you know, quick read. That's the only Stephen King book I read this year.
Shame.
Well, I'm almost caught up, so I gotta...
And Sleeping Beauties.
Oh, and Sleeping Beauties. Well, one and a half books of Stephen King.
Okay.
Well, because he co-wrote it with that one, so
he wrote it.
Yeah,
go on.
Coin Locker Babies.
Right.
By,
I read that last year. By Ryu Murakami.
Very
good.
As I'm sure as you talked about last year, just complete like
fucked up,
like fuck freak show of a story, but you can't look away. You're drawn in,
like a train crash,
but also like a beautiful train crash, kind of like, you know, it's not all. I don't know.
Like a train that's careening off a cliff. You're like, ooh,
yeah,
airborne. It's nice.
I really liked it. Even it was a bigger book. It was one of the bigger books that I read this year. But still, I feel like I got through it pretty quickly, and the characters and stuff were in it. Very nice. I think actually after I get done reading, I was like, I wish it was actually a couple pages longer.
Yeah. It's just, you're like, it's one of those weird books. You're like, oh, I can't wait, this is over. I want it to keep going.
Yeah. Then the Noel McDonald, based on a true story, which I think we can talk about because that's pretty much a work of fiction.
Yeah. That's not a real memoir. Boy, like he says on all his interviews when he was promoting it, not a memoir. He kept calling it. Not a memoir.
Not a memoir. War of the Worlds, another H.G. Wells classic. I like this one too. Again, it kind of got into the horror stuff because like when it got into like the aliens, like because they would like trap people and were like doing things to them and stuff like that, and
to their butts.
Yeah, I mean, probably he doesn't get that far, but you maybe it's implied a little bit.
To the butts.
Yeah. I like the discovery of, like, because, you know, with War of the Worlds, those big 3-prong things are always, you know, front and center, but like there was also other kind of machines and like things that they used to, you know. The only thing though with H.G. Wells though, at least in what I read, you know, they're all like first person, like somebody written them down, so you know what's happening to this person. They're gonna make it through.
Yeah.
But again, as we talked about with stories,
that was just the writing style.
Yeah, that was just the writing style back then. But yeah, just like the visual like storytelling, just like the plight of man, and just like, you know, just a lot of kind of cool and interesting themes that I keep on finding as I've read more of his work. The Elephant Vanishes. Like I said, I definitely think we like this one better than first person perspective. Singular, whatever.
Same thing.
Yeah. And then I just finished The Island of Dr. Moreau, which was also really good. Freaky as all hell. Again, like leans into like a real like this kind of like body horror thing, like because
you have to watch the Marlon Brando movie now.
Oh my god,
fucking weird.
Because like, you know, I always kind of thought like it was like you know, because like again you pick up kind of things from just popular culture and things like that, and so like I always thought like, because you know I had things with like mutating people and and like I always thought it was like he was turning like people into like these animal things. Like, no, he's making these he's making animals
Into, like, people things.
Into people things and teaching them language.
That's
and
why you
stuff
need
like
to
that.
go back and now that you've read that and watch the old South Park episodes with Dr. Mephisto or whatever his name was and that little weird thing he had because it's
basically
he's based on the Marlon Brando. They even have the episode of the NAMBLA one with the National Association of Marlon Brando lookalikes.
But this one I thought like again. I think you'd maybe like if you were gonna get into H.G. Wells, this maybe would be the one. After I got done reading these, I went and looked up some reviews online and just stuff on H.G. Wells in general. Just make sure because we talk about maybe sometimes you miss things as you're reading things and stuff like that. A lot of people put like Island of Dr. Moreau as like the sleeper out of like the like the big four of his stories that don't get enough attention as the other ones. I think this needs to like I'm surprised that nobody's tried to do like a modern like remake or just like new version of it because I could see that being like a Blumhouse.
I'd imagine it's in public domain by now.
You would because there was that movie and I think there was another movie in like maybe like in the 90s.
I think that was the Marlon Brando one.
Well, then maybe because there was one in like the 70s too that was like that looked really weird.
Yeah, Marlon Brando was doing like Godfrey. He wasn't gross yet. He wasn't like morbidly obese and weird at that time.
But I was saying earlier the fine literature. I think the H.G. Wells. I think after reading like a good chunk of his stuff and like looking and checking out some other things about him, like I think like because like, he does have a very like way of like describing things and stuff like that. And I didn't know he was like an actual like scientist before he got into.
I didn't know that either, but it makes sense.
And he was definitely a futurist and stuff like that. So it was just I definitely want to read more of his some of his other like lesser known stories. But those are probably gonna be in the back burner and try to check some other stuff out. But like with his stories seeming to be on the smaller side, I can always squeeze them in as palate cleansers here and there if I really have to.
Right. So is that it for your?
Yeah, that was it.
What do you this will be a longer one. What do you have planned for your 2022 read? Do you have anything on the horizon there? Because I don't have a list written out, but I do have some things I know I'm gonna read.
I have basically because I have a stack of books literally that I look at most days.
Yeah.
So probably something in there, but like I've been reading that Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I've had that for a while.
That's on my list this year too.
And that's a smaller one. I finally got a cool copy of I Am Robot. I want to
By the way, folks, it's not a cool copy. You just got a cover that's not the Will Smith cover. That's all it is. It's not the book is not any different.
Yeah, whatever.
It's not what are you just worried you're gonna think of Will Smith the whole time you're reading the book if he's on the cover?
Well, no, it was just a shitty movie cover, like. But and I'm sure I'm gonna read at least one or two Stephen King books. I want to read another Joe Hill book. I didn't read just like an actual Joe Hill novel this year, so I want to make sure I read at least one of his next year that I haven't read already. But not really, because I know that because most of the things on this was, hey Spencer, read this. So
yeah,
I kind of leave myself open.
Well. My 2022 goals are actually pretty lofty for the reading list. After I finished reading The Stranger, I had some books on my just on my nightstand. One was the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah.
I started reading the first page, kind of zoned out, and was like, not in the mood for this just yet. Then I opened up that big girthy, what is that called? Homeward something Angel. The book Ash sent me. The Thomas Wolfe book. Tom Wolfe's a different author. Yeah. Thomas Wolfe is the one you're thinking of. I did not know there was two, because one's more modern. He wears fancy suits. Ooh. So, Thomas Wolfe, I started reading that.
You think they were related to Dick Wolf from Law and Order?
I hope so. Dick Wolf's a very productive guy. He's very prolific in making TV shows. Makes good TV shows, too. So, I started reading the first page of that, and then again, same thing. I was just like, not the time and place. Something else I need. Plus, if I read that, then I'm not going to read anything for 2 months.
Yeah, because that's a big boy.
Well, it's like 500-something pages, but it's the content that's big. So, I just went back to the Lord of the Rings, started reading The Two Towers. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm still finishing The Quick and the Dead by Martino Kine. It's a short story collection. I actually had to take a break because what did we read for the podcast recently? Nothing. I read that Gutter and the...
Yeah.
I was just reading a bunch of other stuff. It was one of those ones I was just like, read a story here and there and then, read some novels.
Well, that's the good thing with like a short story collection. You don't have to necessarily read them all.
Ones that aren't like overall narrative. Like Haunted, like you couldn't, if you just read one story and then took a break, you fuck up the flow of the novel. Other books on my list, we talked about reading Benjamin Cross's Colony.
Yes.
March. March.
Ooh,
we wanted to read a Walter Mosley book in February. We haven't decided which one.
I probably wouldn't. I should probably try to this year check out like an actual Murakami novel.
That's a good choice.
You know what I mean?
I have some suggestions for you.
I'm sure you do.
We might have even talked about it on a Murakami Minute. If not, it was after the show we did. So no, we definitely had that conversation. So I have those. So I got 3 Lord of the Rings books. So I got 2 that from the trilogy, and then the Silmarillion, whatever it's called. Silmarillion. The fucking hard one to read. I'm gonna read that. And then I have like a whole bunch of like a whole Lord of the Rings collection of what do you call those? I can't think of the word. They go along with the book but aren't actually by Tolkien. They're just they accompany the book if you want to read them. It just tells you about the world and stuff. So I'll probably read those on and off throughout the year too. Then I want to read Nicholas Obregon's Unknown Male, the final book in the Inspector Awada trilogy. I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't got to it yet. That's all it is. And then, you're going to fucking be so happy that you hear me say this. I want to finish Jerusalem by Alan Moore. I'm 200 pages in, and it was really hard to get to the 200-page mark. And I want to finish the book.
When was it? And when did you get to the 200-page mark?
I don't even remember. It's been a while. I read a lot of novels since then.
And then what? You still have like 1,000
pages at least.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say at least because it's 1,000 something, right?
Now I just have like It by Stephen King to read left.
Yeah,
like in
that's it.
That length. Actually, I think Stephen King might be around the same length. I'm not sure, but it's be a lot easier to read.
Are you gonna try to bully Ash into
reading Jerusalem?
Yeah, because wasn't you guys doing
He's not going to do that. Thanks for reminding me, though. We're going to do an IRC on David Foster Wallace's Oblivion short story collection. I actually we're probably going to start that soon. I'll have to get with Ash on that. Because I'm really looking forward to that. I got the book. I forgot about it, actually. So I'm going to read that. And then I'm going to do some, I haven't picked what Stephen King book I'm going to read this year and what I'm going to make you read, for the old swap. I would like to do the game and swap this, so I'll definitely read Neverwhere, and you want to read the Graveyard book. Or you can read American Gods if you want, but I would recommend reading both. Nazi Boys and American Gods.
Well, I know I've always asked you, which one should I read first?
American Gods.
American Gods first?
Or are you talking about American Gods and the Nazi Boys?
Yeah.
Nazi Boys is the sequel.
Sequel?
So you have to read American Gods first, yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was a sequel or if it was a prequel or
it's a sequel. And then I got a whole bunch of Yukio Mishima books and some Haruki Murakami books that I haven't read yet that's going to be on there. I'm sure we'll do another Murakami Minute, probably on that, what is that called? Something Pinball and Dance Dance. It's like 2 books. It's the one that's weird. Like, there's a book on each side. Like, you flip it over.
Like an old flip comic from the 90s.
Yeah. Actually, what I would like to do would be the secret library for Murakami Minute, because we could do that in maybe one episode.
Oh, yeah?
And I'll let you read that. That's that weird, funky one I showed you that opens up, and it's like, I don't even think that was considered a novella. It's probably a short story, honestly. So we could just make that a single episode.
A one-shot.
But
a special.
Before I ramble on about all the books, because there's a lot of books I'm going to read.
I'm sure, and then I'm also going to have a slew of comics that I've...
Yeah, well, we know.
The one thing I forgot to mention, that I did read with the manga, I read the complete, from the beginning of Dragon Ball up to the latest volume in America of Dragon Ball Super.
How many volumes is that?
Of Super or the whole...
Just the whole thing that you read this year?
Well, I know the Dragon Ball, because I read them in the big 3-in-1 collections, and so that has 3 volumes in that.
9.
So there was like 16 volumes of that, because I think there's like 38 altogether from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z.
So essentially, if you counted those mangas you read, you fucking probably read close to 100 books this year.
Yeah, and then like I said, and then Super, came up to volume 14. I just finished. And then I read like the first 5 or 6 volumes of Dr. Stone, which if anybody's watched the anime, that's almost like the first season, like what they cover in the first season.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm happy I remembered that, because that was something that I never thought that I, like, that was something that I always wanted to read, but I never thought that I was actually going to read them, but I did.
Well, I'm thinking I'll probably end up tackling that whole Vagabonds, because I'll have to go back, because I read the first 3, I'll have to go back and finish. They never finished it. So the only thing that sucks is 12 volumes over there. I got all 12 of them, but it's like, I'm going to read all of them, and then it's not going to be finished. Like, that's going to suck.
Did he die or something?
I don't know. He just didn't do it. I read the Musashi novel by Eiji, whatever his name is, and so it's like I know the story. That's because what Vagabond's based on, so it's not going to be a surprise. It just sucks that the manga version isn't going to be finished. But before we end this, because this is actually supposed to be a writing podcast, I have huge news in regards to what my 2022 goal is, but also not probably that exciting because it's not like a bunch of projects or anything. The first one, which is the most basic thing, is we're going to put out the short story collection.
Yeah.
I have to edit your one story, and then I just have to go through and, fucking do all the formatting and shit and see what stays and what goes. And hopefully we won't have to add any other stories to that. And that'll be just learning how to put out actual collection, like, the printing and all that stuff. So that'll be, when I have time, because the first thing that's most important to me is my novel.
Yeah.
I don't know how many, I'm handwriting it in a Moleskine, or not a Moleskine, a lectern or whatever they're called, but pretty much a Moleskine, like, a numbered notebook. I'm like 30 pages into that, which is only 2 chapters. So I don't know what that would translate into, the computer, but I would imagine I would say at least 10,000 words into it probably. And I'm not at the part that really excites me. Once I get to the exciting part, I feel like I'm going to fly through this thing. Because I'm just doing like the beginning intro, which is like, for me, is going to be the hardest part to make exciting, because I just don't really care about that, because I want to get to the cool shit. But it's hard to just write out scenes when you're doing it by hand, because I'm trying to do it, in order. That's the big news for my writing goals. Like, I would like to get published in some magazines or something, but I haven't decided, like, that would just have to be in between other things. Like, oh, I'm going to take a break from the novel and just write a short story to submit somewhere. But my main goal is the novel, and then put out the short story collection. I'm hoping to have the first draft of the novel done by summertime. I think that gives me ample time to get that, and then I'll probably take a month off or so. I then go back to it to transcribe it to the computer and then really write. So hopefully by 2023, the novel will be completely finished. That's the goal. Pretty lofty because it's my first novel, but it's something I'm excited about. So that's good to have something that you're really excited about versus something you're just like, oh, I'll just do some writing. What about you, writing goals?
Obviously the collection, that's something also too that I'm looking forward to finishing and trying to get out there into the world. And then I think for me, I mentioned before, but I think I am going to try to put out a collection of just my own short stories, or like almost kind of like a Stephen King's different seasons, where there's only like
4 or 5
longer stories, unless if I happen to come up with something that I just catch fire or, like, what I mean. You never know what the muse is gonna hit on. So because I already have first drafts of like 2 or 3 other stories that I think would be good for decent size that could that we haven't used for anything else. So if I can if I can do a couple more, and then I can start looking back at the older ones for second drafts and polishing turds and
right.
and that kind of stuff. Because I think I want to do the short stories too, to also try to because I plan on trying to have different kind of stories, like, you know what I mean? So to be like, oh, I can also kind of do like this weird kind of horror thing, but there's also like this other kind, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just
to try to
showcase the skills a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, like, this is the kind of stuff that I like, that I want to write about, and hopefully in the future I get to write more about.
Yeah, that's always the goal. For those listening who are wondering where this leave, what room does this leave for the actual DPW podcast, and equally as important that we always ignore anymore, is the site.
Yes.
Because we haven't been putting a lot of work on the site, really. Other than like the Halloween submissions and stuff, we had. Oh fuck! I gotta put out a Christmas submission. I completely forgot about. I gotta do that by the weekend. I hope that girl's not disappointed. I don't know if she listens or not. I'll try to do that. Maybe I'll put it out Friday. 'Cause I don't want to put it out on Christmas. That'd be fucked up.
Yeah, nobody's gonna read it.
Yeah, it's only I keep thinking it's Thursday. It's only Tuesday. I'm panicking for no reason. But for the goals for the site. Like I said, we got the collection coming out, which is where our main focus was this year, just writing stories and finishing up that, which we definitely drug our feet a lot with that and stuff. And this is just kind of a shitty year, to be honest. But
like the past shitty year before, and then probably the shitty year coming up.
Yeah, it's shit all around. But as far as the site, it's just gonna be kind of we're just mainly using it just to post whenever. It's not like it's a fucking big time magazine that we're focused on. Maybe I'll do like a spring submissions or something. I've done that in the past. We've got, hit or miss with those. So I don't know. I haven't decided.
Well, like one thing I was thinking about maybe doing since, I was, maybe if once I get a couple more like H.G. Wells books under my belt, I was thinking about maybe doing like things that I like about the author and, about H.G. Wells. Like that kind of stuff is like the stuff that that are probably going to be on the site.
Yeah.
In the future, like those kind of things.
Yeah, and like every time I do post a story, I always get good feedback on it. People seem to enjoy reading them. So the consistency thing is just like, it's not like when we first started this where that was just our goal, was just to kind of build up the site and just work on our writing. It's like, well, now we're kind of beyond that where we want to actually, I want to put out a novel. You're working on a short story collection at the DPW short story collection. So kind of more important things, really. But at the same time, it's like, it's not kind of coincides with the downfall of fucking like the writing community on Twitter. It's like people just aren't reading stuff on there anyway. So I don't, because that's where our main following came from originally. And it's like nobody really cares on there. We have the WordPress followers, which is a good bit. And they'll read it regardless. They just read when it pops up. So I'm not worried about that.
And and honestly, do we know if they're actually reading it or are they just clicking on the thing?
I don't know, because it's usually the same amount of people who like the stuff we post. Like they always like it. So I would imagine, like, why would they for years just keep liking stuff that they're not reading? That seems kind of stupid. Now, as far as the podcast, I said I had big news, but I am kind of indecisive here.
What? No way, us?
Oh.
No.
Well, first thing, I got a Christmas bonus at work coming up, so I'm gonna see how much that is. Shut up, Spencer. And because I almost bought it already, just to be a fuck. But I'm looking at a Rodecaster mixer because I started watching some videos on it and stuff. It's not just like a mixer like this thing. Like this thing's a pretty nice mixer, but one, it's way nicer and just easier to handle. But you actually record into it. Like you can still record on the computer if you want. But all the edits that I do on here and get rid of like all the fucking shit and still struggle with, like there's some functions on that because we use Audacity that like I told you when we got the new mics and stuff, I got new cords, so that hopefully that helps. But there were some sharp S's in some of the episodes that it's called de-essing. You have to have a de-esser. You can get a plugin for Audacity, but it doesn't have it featured on the program. So it's like I have to manually like fix those clips. That's a pain in the ass. You could just you just have the de-esser on the mixer, and I have a selfish reason why I buy this. You don't have to chip in on this one because this thing's fucking like $600. It's because I'm thinking of starting, which I've touched upon with you before off air, and I talked with Ash a little bit, is I want to start my own podcast that would be like scripted. Like I haven't decided what it would be, but like either you'd be telling, maybe some fucked up stories or histories, or I talked to you before about like doing like a mythical lands, and I would cover like the Middle Earth and Hyperbian. It just depends like what I could find that I think would be something that I could be consistent with, and I would do it in season format, so there'd only be a certain amount of episodes I would release. So I'd probably record them and edit them all before I release them, you know, see how it goes. That would be one reason for getting the expensive stupid mixer. Two, it would be what would be the future of this actual podcast, because we are coming up on the 100th episode. We were talking about doing, changing the music for the 100th episode, having new intro music and stuff. I've been really thinking about like what, because for a while now, we just kind of been willy-nilly with what we're doing. Like we just cover stuff and kind of bullshit. But I think a more direct approach to like what, our content would probably be better. Because I was looking, like how I don't even remember what episode this was. I want to say 5 episodes ago or something. We were talking about like Bill Maher and like, we brought him up in the intro and how it went with Tolkien and escapism and stuff. Do you know the first time we talked about Bill Maher? Because remember I said, in that episode, I was like, we had an episode on Bill Maher and how much it sucks ass. Do you know what episode that was? I looked back, episode 6.
Yeah.
That far. It does not seem like it was that long ago. And I was listening to like just the parts of the original first like couple episodes.
Oh man.
And not only were they so shitty, like it was just so weird going back and then like hitting like certain topics and stuff that we were talking about, and then how our opinions have, changed over the years and stuff. And I'm just thinking it would be really cool to keep this podcast going instead, because I was thinking like the listener it fluctuates, like the downloads and stuff, and is it worth constantly spending the yearly money on the podcast? What is it on Podbean? We have as our host, so it's like we're spending the host money. And it's not like we make money off the podcast. We made 30 cents, I think, off it because we had one sponsor one time, and I don't even remember, it was some other podcast too that was a sponsor. But I was thinking like, do we just cancel it and come up with like, because we've talked about in the past too, also doing another podcast, and then, but there's only so much time, so would we just get rid of this one and just start something else? I like this podcast.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep this podcast going. It was the original, and we already have the equipment and stuff, so maybe just find, maybe just more professional, honestly.
Well, I mean,
I don't know. We'd figure that out, but I was also thinking if I get that cool mixer.
Well, I'll tell you this. Some of your like favorite podcasts that you listen to, how professional are they?
Exactly.
But your mixer.
So if I get the mixer, though, well, why just stop with my own personal podcast and the DPW podcast? I mean, you could do our dream bullshit podcast we always talked about.
Because it'd be easier to...
Wouldn't have to have really editing as much, and especially with the mixer. And the main thing about it is it wouldn't have to be a weekly podcast.
No.
Just do a monthly podcast or something.
We wanted to.
And we could use the free version of Podbean if it's just that. Like if it was just like a monthly, because the main thing is like they have a limit of how much you can fucking upload at a time or something. It's like pretty piddly. But if we, that's if you're doing a weekly podcast like we do now. So if we just had one where we just had the podcast and we were only doing like, 1 or 2 uploads a month, then we can get away with that.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
We could even do our original Ion Comics podcast. Actually, that was a website that we tried to start on Squarespace, and we did not know how to do it. It was weird. It was so much easier for me to figure out WordPress with coding and everything than it was the fucking drag and click shit on Squarespace. I don't know what it was. That's why they fucking didn't want us to be. They didn't want to be a sponsor. But do you have any ideas on the future here of the podcasting network, our brand? I also was thinking about getting a new logo, but I've talked about that in the past too.
I think going forward for this podcast, and we've talked about it before, is maybe trying to go the guest route, which I think would help and just be fun. The couple of people that we have talked to,
we really liked it. Yeah,
they've been awesome people.
The main problem with the guests before was one, the equipment, two, the space we had. Yeah. And then we, now we got the studio. So like we had Benjamin Cross. I think he was the only like non-regular guest, because we have like Ashley and then the other British Ashley. He's been on a couple times and stuff. But I think that was the only author guest that we had on here that we didn't talk to previously. But even so, like we still had the old shitty microphones on that one and stuff. But now, like we pretty much got everything. If I get that new mixer, it'd be a lot easier to do that, because I wouldn't just have to hook like how I do it now. Like I gotta hook one computer and do all this shit. I wouldn't need this laptop anymore to record on, so we could use this to have the guest on, like the Zoom guest, so we could hook it up. And also, what's really cool about that thing, we could set the fucking intro music and outro music on it. You just press a button and just fade it. So I will not have to do anything like it'll just be so much easier. Just because that's the main thing too, is like I start to kind of like just get like I don't want to put that much effort into the podcast, because like you do something so long it becomes work. So just all the editing and stuff every week I do for this, it's just like it drags you down.
And that could be time spent on the novel,
or even just doing a better episode for the podcast. Like because if I'm editing and doing all this shit and I'm just like, it's time to edit the fucking podcast, and 2 hours later, like it just takes so long that I get sick of hearing our voices. Honestly, I just get tired of listening to it, because
I don't
imagine if we recorded the podcast and then a couple days later you had to listen to the whole podcast again. Like it gets fucking daunting. It's like, oh my god, I sound so stupid. So I deal with that. But with the mixer, I won't have to deal with that anymore. I would have to cut out, just the random,
like pauses or
shit like that. I could do that in post production, and maybe just a couple quick edits if necessary. If I wanted to add music or anything that wasn't already on the mixer. But as far as like all the levels and stuff, because like how we're recording now, I have to go back and edit. it's like a solid 10-20 minutes of different sound edits just to get us to the same levels per episode. Because every episode, you want it to sound the same. So it's a project, but I have hope that we will have a better 2022. But still, most important thing to me is the novel, because I want to get some fucking work out there finally. That's like major work, And I'm just interested to see how I, turn out as a novelist.
Yeah.
And first novel, I don't have high hopes of being like, some great novel, because usually people write their first novel, they're very excited about it, but it's not, it's like fucking tearing a Band-Aid off. You kind of just got to get it out the way, then the wound heals, and then it's just like, okay, maybe I'll do something better next time. One good thing that makes me happy is I've for a while now had ideas for other novels too that are pretty fleshed out. So it's not like once I finish this one, I'm going to be writer's block hell. I could go right to the next project. So that's kind of where my mind space is. I know Ashley's doing all kinds of writing, but he's all over the fucking place. Novels and short story collections. And that guy, I don't know how he finds the energy to do all that shit. We'll end on New Year's resolutions, which is kind of what I was talking about. But my New Year's resolution is to at least try to start not start. I'm going to write at least 5 out of 7 days a week. That's my New Year's resolution.
Do you have a word count or just days?
Doesn't matter. Just writing 5 out of 7 days minimum. If I get 7 out of 7, that'd be great. But there's really no reason other than like random holidays and obligations, that come up, that I can't find time to at least write a paragraph.
Yeah.
That's one thing I always say to people. If you had a phone, even you could write a paragraph. You can write notes, because writing is not just sitting down and actually writing prose. Like it's note taking, coming up with ideas. My fucking note feature on my phone is full of quotes and paragraphs of just different scenes that come up to me that it's going to be in the future part of the book. So I'm just like, I don't want to forget that. So I just write it all. That's writing too. Like it's, it all goes into it. Even if it's stuff you don't use, just write every day. I think that's the most important thing. And me and you have fucking say, oh yeah, we need to do that. And we always say it. And then we just
never do it.
Get excited about it. Maybe do it for like a week and then fucking,
life happens and we don't.
Yeah. So we need to not let life happen. So what about you? What's your resolution?
I mean, in fear of copying you, I think that the 5 out of 7 days of writing, like I think that's a good, solid, not like a ridiculous. Like
if you don't obsess about the word count, it's doable. It's when you're like, I'm gonna write 5 out of 7 days, but it's gonna be 1,000 words a day, 2,000 words. That's when you fuck up. Because then if you don't hit that, you get depressed.
It's like when people go to the gym at the beginning of the year, and it's like, I'm gonna go to the gym 7 days a week. They're like, no, go like 2 or 3 and
build up to it.
Yeah, like don't burn yourself out and get hurt.
We'll have to come up with some kind of system to keep each other in check that we are writing every day. Even if it's just simple text. You write today? Nope. Fucking right.
Shame.
All right. So how long were you on the toilet today? 6 hours. That seems excessive. Did you do any writing? No. Well, are you on the toilet now? Yes, of course. Hour 7. Well, let's do some writing. Okay. Like, you could do that.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. We'll start that. Honestly, let's just start that right now or tomorrow. But
well, what about what's your reading goal? Is you gonna try to shoot for 40 again?
I'll say probably 50 this year.
50?
Yeah, I'll go for 50. Does Jerusalem count as 30 books?
I may give you 2.
Oh, come on. You read a page of it. You saw it.
I looked at a page.
You didn't read it. Exactly. So that's all old and new business. Anything else?
I don't believe so.
It's going to be a fun episode for me to edit. I'll be sitting through getting angry. I will end on this because I keep ending on things like I always do. Which is another thing. That should be another resolution, is to stop saying I'm going to end on this, because I never do end on anything. I don't know why. That episode we did, this was, not last week, the week before, we did an episode about, fuck was that episode? Oh, shit. I'm just going to look. I'm getting like you now. I'm just like always forgetting what episodes we recorded.
Well, we did the 50 stories under...
That was last week.
Yeah.
We did the indie publishing versus traditional publishing episode that I thought went so well. I was like, what a great conversation. I was all jazzed about it. When I edited it, I'm not joking. I think that was one of the worst episodes we ever did. I hated it. I almost didn't post it.
You were telling me about it.
I was almost going to just put out a thing, no episode this week. Like, I was fucking pissed that we just sucked that bad. And it really fucking took a hit on my self-esteem. I was like, what the fuck? How? How is that so garbage? And then last week, like I said, I was so excited about that episode. It sucked ass. Last week we did 50 of the best books under 200 pages. I thought that episode went horrible.
Yeah.
When we recorded that, I was like, holy fuck, I'm going to edit for 6 hours. This is terrible. We sound so stupid. I messed up every pronunciation you could think of. Fucking worst thing we've ever recorded. I fucking loved it. When I was listening to it, I was laughing my balls off. I thought, like, I don't know. I don't know why that happens. It's like every time we seem to do an episode that I think is terrible, it always comes out great. And then when we do an episode I think is wonderful, it fucking sucks.
Well, how do we have any numbers on the publishing one? Like, did people, like, download that one, or were they just like, oh, this is...
Well, that's the problem is they probably downloaded it, but then once they started listening to it, they probably stopped. Because it doesn't tell you if they listened to the whole thing.
True.
I guess I could look to the next week's episode and see if there's a huge drop-off. Well, they can't all be winners, but it just sucks when you think something's good. That's my biggest fear. Is like I read a novel and I think it's really, really good. I've done that with short stories. I was like, this is the one. People are going to love this. Nothing. Crickets. And then I fucking shit out a stupid story that I hate, and I'm like, I don't like this at all. I'm not even gonna post it. I'm not posting that spike. Just everybody tell me how much I suck, and then I can pity, wallow in self pity in the tub, and then everybody loves it. I'm like, what the fuck? You people are stupid. You don't know anything. You don't know that sucks.
Makes no sense.
No sense. My name's Spencer Church. I'm gonna write a shitty article about fucking superheroes, and I hate it, and I'm gonna turn it in at the last second, and then Caleb's gonna edit it and also hate it, and then it's gonna get 800 million views. Ah. So, folks, we thank you, and DPW wishes you a happy new year. So, thank you for listening. You can check out our work at drunkenpenwriting.com. You can go on Twitter and follow us at drunkpenwriting, Instagram, Facebook. The name, Spencer? Not paying attention.
Pen writing?
At Drunken Pen
Writing.
Gotta have it. And then you can get Spencer's OnlyFans at, you don't remember the name.
The Quebec Quarantine Quipper?
Yeah, the Quebecian Quarantine Quipper. Quipping in quarantine. I don't know if quipping's a verb. Like, you can to quip. Like, quip. Made a quip. You're quipping. Quip. I'm stuck in a loop. Quip. So, again, Happy New Year. We hope it's just as fruitful for you as we want it to be for us. I actually had a great idea just now. We're going to get to a certain book. I'm going to edit this part out. When we get to a certain book, Spencer, you know what book it is. I'm going to need you to be completely quiet when I bring it up because I'm going to add very dramatic music in the afterbirth, not afterbirth. The post-production. Afterbirth works for the book. So, yeah, I'll stick around for that.